is Chalk It Out, where we spill the tea on what it's really like to be an educator. Hi, I'm Mallory.
And I'm Greta. Today we're going to be talking about community building, which is something near and dear to my heart. This episode will kind of be broken up into three parts. We're going to talk about it from the school level, family level, and student level. So Mallory is going to sort of start us off talking about the school level.
Yes, when you think about the beginning of the school year, admin gets together with coaches and leaders in the school system, and they talk about what's called a 90-day plan. And so that is the start of the school year. You write down your goals for the year. You look at data to determine what steps do we want to improve on. And so it's this long process, this document, and then it's shared with the staff.
And I got to say, from a teacher perspective, when I hear 90-day plan, I tune out because it's boring.
It is. But it does serve a purpose because it gives that why, which we're going to talk a lot about today. So if people know the why, there's more buy-in.
Okay, yeah. So I'm curious how the 90-day plan is going to connect to community building.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So we got that 90-day plan. We are going to usually share that with the school at the beginning of the year. So the beginning of the year, there's always 4 to 6 days where it's just teachers in the building. Sometimes you work with the school district, but most of the days you're at your school. And so that's the opportunity for the whole staff to look at that plan.
Okay, and you're telling us that we should not check out during this time and we should listen.
No, yes. I think you should listen and think about how could this connect maybe to your evaluation or to your classroom.
Okay.
And so a lot of times there is some type of SEL goal in there.
True.
And some equity work, which is really important.
Right.
And then there's also an academic goal. And then within that plan, it has everyone who can help and support you. So you can go to the interventionist, your coach, admin, all those people, ILT. So the members on that can go in and support you with those goals. A lot of times it will go back to belonging, though, because you want the staff to understand how are students going to belong to the school. And also, during that time frame, you're building connections with your staff as well. And so we want to start off the school year positive note, knowing exactly what we want to accomplish for that year so we can move forward, in a positive way.
Yeah, and I read somewhere, and I don't have the statistics somewhere, but like a happy, connected staff has a direct correlation to student learning.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah. If they have buy-in, then they're going to come across their teaching like, yes, we're in this, we're going to accomplish this, and everyone's excited about it. So there is that. And then I would say we can share some stories too. At the beginning of the school year, a lot of connections. So I don't know if you want to talk about what is a connection and things that you've done maybe at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, so like with staff specifically.
Yes.
I feel like with staff it's hard because everyone hates an icebreaker,
Well, yeah, I would say like half and half.
Yeah.
Half are like all into it, competitive. The other half are like, I just need to get to my room and I need to start, organizing it, getting ready for that first day of school.
Yeah, so I would say as much as people kind of hate it, they do serve a purpose. I would just encourage people to think about, does your icebreaker connect to that greater goal of like building community? Is this going to help me get to know somebody at a deeper level, or is it just a waste of my time,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we've done some fun ones. I've heard other schools have where they actually get to go to like a park and stuff and do community building like that.
Yeah. One year, a school I was at, we went to the ropes course. It was a little bit up in the mountains. So it was like a 45-minute drive, and we all met there, and it was so fun. I mean, it was really fun for me because I like stuff like that. I think a lot of teachers, maybe if you're like maybe on the older side or like not in the best shape, it was a little bit scary. But there was like enough activities where like everyone could participate in something, and there was a lot of working together, like team building type stuff, which I thought was really fun.
Yes. Yeah. Because you want to especially when you're new to a school, I think those activities are really wonderful because you get to know the people you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so that was kind of just starting off at the beginning of the school year with the staff. So you have those meetings, you start building that belonging and think about what is our equity work for this year with our students, and then what data are we going to try to improve on. So that gets like, okay, we have our goal, we're ready to go. So that was kind of just a brief overview of that first layer.
Okay. So we've got our school staff layer, which is very important, but as this podcast, I think is geared more towards like teachers and like maybe families, not really administrators as much, although we welcome you if you're listening as an administrator. We're going to kind of touch more on like how to build community with families and then students.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about families. So that can be really tricky when you have a really diverse community because there can be language barriers, there can be cultural barriers. And so a lot of work falls on the teacher to break down those barriers, right?
Yeah, and there are some places within Colorado that have in a classroom, 15 different language. You're not just talking Spanish and English. So that can be difficult to maneuver.
Absolutely. And so if your school is one of those schools with a bunch of different languages and variety in cultures, there's some really good resources out there that you can use for translating. Talking Points, if you don't use that to communicate with families, that's a really amazing source where you like type out a text message and then you type it in English and then it translates it to whatever their home language is. Then they can respond in their home language and it comes back to you in English. So that's really cool.
That is cool.
What are some other things?
I've used like Classroom Dojo, and I don't know how many different languages are on there, but there are some as well on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we just got something called Pocket Talks this year.
Okay.
And they are like little, devices,
Yeah.
like little, I'm thinking like a pager size. That
Yeah.
makes me feel really old. I never had a pager, just FYI.
You know what they are.
And you speak into it and then it'll speak out what language you want it translated into. And then
that is cool.
Yeah. And then it can listen to the response in the other language and then it will speak it out in English for you.
Perfect.
So that's really cool for like in-person conversations.
Was it pretty accurate when you used it? Because sometimes the translation gets, a little wonky.
That's a good question. I haven't actually used it in practice.
Okay.
But I did play around with it, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. And then there's S'more newsletter that translates things into a bunch of different language, right?
Okay.
I think that's a free resource that will automatically translate things.
Okay.
There was one more.
And usually school districts have translators, but you'd have to, call them up, dial in your number, and it does cost, but that's always an option as well. I used that a lot when I was at an elementary school.
Yes, except for when you get one, make sure you call them interpreters. They're not. They get,
Sorry.
They get really mad when you call them translators.
Sounds like you have a good story.
No, it just, my translator. And she's like, interpreter. I'm like, so sorry.
Good
And
change that verbiage.
which like I understand
Yeah.
because it's like the nuance of the language. They're interpreting what you're saying. They're not translating it word for word. So there's a nuance there, that human level component, which makes their job so valuable. So I get it, but yeah.
And I think on the document it says like translators. That's really funny. They need to change that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good though to know. I love that. Okay. Yeah, so I started thinking about that first week. Well, actually, you usually meet sometimes with the families at certain schools before school even starts. Where they have their children come in. You can meet with them, like little meet and greet. A lot of the early grades will do that. We took time to do a quick assessment on the students just so we can kind of see like who are these students in front of us, start thinking about how we would differentiate them. And so, but that's a great opportunity to meet the families for the first time. And if you listened to previous episodes where we talked about recording their names, that's when I would do that.
Yeah.
Can you tell me your first and last name and record it? That way I knew how to pronounce their names.
Yeah, that's really smart. I always just wrote it down phonetically, and I wish that I had just thought of recording it. Like, duh.
Yeah, makes it very nice. And then they're all on there. So,
yeah.
Perfect.
I've also done home visits in the past, which I know I talked about earlier in an episode.
And that's
too.
before school started?
Before school starts. Okay. But you can also do them throughout the year. What you really need to do is you need admin support because you need somebody to go with you. And like, I don't know if you need permission necessarily. I would get it and be like, hey, I want to go do a home visit on this family. Because you want to go during the school day typically, so you want coverage, or you're doing it before school starts or something. But that can be a really insightful way to get to know families too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I love that.
And then the next part, so that was just kind of like that before school starts. And then, of course, you're going to have like things like back to school night, which usually happen within the first couple of weeks of school. And so another opportunity, I take full advantage of that, where I have like a little newsletter or just a brief overview about myself. Usually there's some kind of slideshow to show them about you, maybe your expectations in the classroom, what grade level work looks like by the end of the year, to show them like this is what writing looks like. This is how much they should be reading by the end of this grade level. Because what happens sometimes, they'll go into parent-teacher conferences and have no idea where their child is at. In their mind, they're like, yes, my child's on grade level. And you show them that, and then it's like a fear in the eyes. what, So I think giving that to them ahead of time is really helpful to see like, this is where we're going to end up.
Yeah, and I love the giving it to them before school starts too, because it makes the conversation less scary for you as a teacher when a student is very significantly below grade level, like if they're just writing a sentence.
Yes.
And you have already shown that the grade level expectation is a page. It just makes that conversation a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And everyone's on the same page. And also things are a lot different from like when I was in kinder or first grade, the amount that they're writing. And so sometimes parents have just no idea expectation. So yeah. And then I do, sometimes I've used monthly newsletters or an email, but there are certain schools, parents don't check those. So that would be one of those things like you don't want to do anything that takes time or no one's actually going to read it. So I think with that, it just depends on your school, your classroom to see if it's something parents even want to read and have time to read.
Yeah. And I would also say make sure that you have time to keep up with it if you're going to commit to it, because that was something I was like, I'm going to do monthly newsletters. And then I did 3, I forgot about them and I never did them. So either collaborate with your team about that, assign months to write, or use Bridges curriculum, math curriculum have those parent newsletters to send home before the start of each unit, which are really helpful. But make sure it's something that you really will have time to commit to.
Yes. And I'll say my kids' current school, they send weekly newsletter. Ooh. And when you have 3 children at a school, you get weekly newsletters from the grade level. And they're probably 10 pages long.
Oh,
so
my
parents
God.
are very involved and want to know everything. And they actually have a blurb about this is what we're learning about in reading. This is our OG. This is our math. This is our... So they give a whole thing.
Wow. I wonder how much time that takes.
I don't know. But I think they save them year after year. So once you have your first year down... you can just kind of, change a few things here and there.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. Not doing that.
I know. I was like, wow.
I know, because there's a fine line, because parents want communication, but then if you send too much communication, they get mad.
Yes.
And they're like, it's too much. And you're like, well, I'm trying to do what you asked.
Yeah. So, and they sent a survey home for that reason. I think there was getting some mixed signals. Like, we want weekly communication. Then some are like, this is too much. So
yeah,
trying to find the balance.
Yeah. And we'd be really interested from a parent perspective, what your take is on communication from schools. Because I know it's a lot, but it's would you rather know too much or would you rather know nothing? And I think that's a really interesting sticking point, I think, in the relationship between educators and educators and parents.
Yeah.
Because you want to communicate, but it also takes a lot of time. So then you want it to be worthy, and then reading it takes time. I don't know. It's just...
I prefer to have more than less, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think I would too. I'm going to read the email.
Yeah. Because you can just kind of scroll through it real quickly. It's not like you have to read line for line,
Right. And usually when there's events coming up, I feel like we send out multiple reminders. So it's if you miss something, sorry, dude.
Oh, yeah. You get get the email, you get a phone call, you might get a text. So
yeah,
3 different ways to communicate. Yes. The other thing I was thinking about is just letting parents know, if you can, ahead of time of family events, because you get a lot more parents to attend activities. If you're like, hey, these are our 2 dates this year, or 3 dates, whatever it is, for parties or, celebrations.
Yeah.
So they can go and put that on the calendar. I think that's helpful, that back to school night too.
Yeah. And I think parent volunteers are really cool. I never really had a parent volunteer in a classroom, but I do know parents used to come in for the parties we would have because they wanted to spend time with their kids. So sometimes I would have specific tasks. I need you to do this, this, and this. And then a lot of times they just wanted to sit with their kids and not help. Okay, well, now I'm just running around, but it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So at private school, I had a lot of, parent support. And some schools, my kids too, they have a homeroom parent. And they take on a lot of things. So they'll take on the parties. They're in total control of those parties. They actually raise money for things. They get the gifts for the teachers. And then some even help out in the classroom with small groups, just sitting with a group, or they'll come in and read to the class. So if you're at a school where you have parents like that, use them. Because anytime you have an extra adult in the classroom,
And then just talk about one of the other differences between different schools. If you have a school where parents are not able to get in the classroom, the amount of work that the the increase in teacher workload is really intense. Like you have to plan all your parties, do your Friday folders.
Yes.
There's
On top of lesson planning and all of that.
yeah, like you have to plan all the like the field trips, all that stuff. That's like really takes a lot of time. Whereas you have other schools where parents may be working from home or stay-at-home moms or whatever, or stay-at-home dads. Sorry, don't mean to be uninclusive. And they can come in and do like help the teacher a lot more. And so just think about that workload difference is really huge.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, getting off track a little bit, but okay. So family engagement and building community with family.
Yeah.
So like, I love that we're talking more about like just not just like bringing families in, but trying to form that relationship and partnership with families.
For sure.
Something else that I love doing is positive phone calls home. And that can feel really daunting, especially when you have like 28 kids in your class. So you can do it over the course of a day. You can do it over the course of a week or the first 2 weeks and just call like 3 or 4. So some tips for that, if you're feeling that feels like a lot, would be I would have like a clipboard with all the students' names, and I would just sort of go through each day. And if a student does, because you want to call and you want to like give a funny story, or you want to say, oh, when I asked about the character traits of this character, whatever, Mallory said, oh, that character showed.
Yeah, you want to have examples so
Right.
it doesn't seem fake.
Exactly.
Yeah. They had a great day. Okay.
Yeah, no one wants to hear that, right? They want to know, like, if they want a specific story about how their student shined, right? Either academically or social emotionally. Ooh, Mallory helped a kid when she fell down today, and it was so great.
Yeah.
You know, so make sure you are like kind of keeping track of those little stories. And when you get one, then you can make a phone call home. I always make sure to ask, like, is it a good time to chat? Because they could be at work. You just want to be respectful of their time.
Yes.
And go into it noting that they're probably, when they get a call from a school, are expecting bad news, right? So they're going to be excited, but at first they're going to be skeptical.
Yeah.
And so then you go in with your like funny story, your whatever story, and then you say things like, I'm just so excited to be their teacher. Do you have any questions about the school year? And I always like leave a little opportunity to ask questions, even if you're like, oh God, I don't have time to answer a million questions. But I think it's important because it opens up that two-way communication. And it's okay to be, I don't know the answer to that right now. Or like, let me think about that and I'll call you back tomorrow.
Yes. Or if it's a complicated answer, I would just be like, you know what, this seems like something maybe we can either do in person or schedule a time for like 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is say something too that you're not sure, like if that's correct. So it's better just to be like, let me think about that, like you said. Let's schedule a time. Do you have 15 minutes sometime in the next week?
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. So that is something huge and a great way to build family relationships.
Yes, of course. And I think that last piece is just those parent-teacher conferences, being prepared for those. But I feel like we'll have like a whole episode maybe on that because that can be stressful too, especially if you're a first-year teacher.
Yes.
And if you have demanding parents.
Yes. And like, what's the best way to be organized for those? Because I think that I was always floundering with that a little bit. So you are an organized person, so I bet you have a lot of things.
Everybody had their own binder.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool, Mallory.
Yeah, nope, sure did.
No, that's actually really great. And probably something you would set up at the beginning of the year, right?
Yes. And you can gradually add things to the folder. So at the end of the year, it's like, ooh, look at all the amazing work you have done. Look at where you started with your writing. Look at where you ended.
Okay. So we can talk about that. We have a whole episode coming up about first thing, like what you should do the first month of school.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that more in depth there.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So moving to the student level.
Yes.
Right.
So before we get started, I feel like we need to tell the audience why it's important
Yeah.
to build belonging, that why piece. And I have a funny story, not really funny, but that connects with it, not educated related.
Okay. Tell us.
So I got my hair done yesterday.
And it looks great, by the way.
Thank you. And I enter the salon, and the lady working is like, doesn't really say anything, doesn't say hi, nothing like that. Is just like, is there someone that can come pick your children up?
Rude.
I'm like, okay, I've the 3 children with me, which I don't always take them everywhere. Sometimes there's no one to watch them. So yes, my children are very well behaved. It's not like they're crazy.
The most well-behaved children I have ever met. Literally.
They don't say a peep at things like that. They just sit silently and do their thing. So anyhow, that's how she started the conversation. And then she's like, our policy is there's no children while you're getting your hair done. And so I'm like, take a step back, and I'm like defensive and like ready to fire back. So first I was like, well, if I leave, I'm not ever coming back. And I've been here for 5 years and I love it, my hairstylist.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I would like to talk to the owner and my hairstylist, please. And so wouldn't even make eye contact, just staring at her computer, mad, like with this dirty look. And I'm like, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Turns out after I got the why, if she would have came with that first and explained, you know what, we had an incident because of safety reasons. We have changed our policy. I am so sorry. You have your children here. Let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
That's all she had to say.
Be a little bit of a human.
And give the safety reason, because if I had heard that, I would have reacted a lot differently.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to share that, because everything we are talking about today, it's really important to give that why on our staff. Why are we having these goals? Because our data is showing this.
Right.
Why are we going to build belonging? And that's what you're going to get at next. So I just wanted to kind of tie that in, because it is important for people to know the purpose.
Yeah. And I love that, because we can build belonging in spaces outside of our homes and outside of our classrooms. It could be in our hair salons, where, those people that just like make you feel welcome and happy, and like you want to go
their
back.
Job.
Yeah. And then you have the people like the receptionist you were just talking about that make you never want to go there again. And you're like, okay, well,
I've thought about changing places after 5 years, and I love my hairstylist. It's nothing to do with her, and she was so kind and was like, I'm so sorry. If it were up to me, I don't mind, because they've also were in there like 4 different times.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to change that.
Yeah. So I am going to go through like a little bit of research into why community building is so important. Even though, like, if you are a teacher, you know this, because it's in every single PD. It's in every single book you've ever read about teaching, and it should have been in your teacher preparation program, right? Like, it's everywhere, but it can be easy to forget. Sometimes we want to jump into the academics, and we're like, oh, I forgot to build a relationship.
Yes. And children need to feel safe before they can learn.
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit from Columbia University's Center for Teaching and Learning. So they say that there's a lot of research out there and you can go, we have the link to this, all of our research in our blog at chalkitoutpodcast.com. So check it out there if you want to read a little bit more in depth about all the strategies we're talking about as well. But research shows that students who feel like they belong, can be their authentic selves, and find support in their class will be more likely to engage in dialogue, reflection, and take more ownership in their work. So all of those things are conditions for learning.
And
right?
if you're in education, dialogue is really important for they also call it like discourse, for students who are actually having conversations about their learning and applying it.
Yes, exactly. And so they reference a community of inquiry, which is a framework that was designed by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer, but it's widely noted for 3 elements: social presence, teaching presence, and cognitive presence. And they all intertwine together. So think of like a 3-part Venn diagram,
Yes.
And all of those things are critical for fostering a community of engaged participants. So that social presence and that teaching presence, like, all of that is necessary to have that cognitive learning. So if you don't build that community with your class, or you don't teach them how to regulate or show up as your authentic self, then like it's not going to come together.
So you need all 3.
Yeah. So you need really all of those things. And then there's one more study, a 2018 study that I read about in Edutopia, that academic engagement increased by 20 percentage points and disruptive behavior decreased by 9 percentage points solely when students were greeted positively at the door.
Oh, I believe that. How
Yeah.
you start your day? Yes.
Yeah. So like the most simple thing, like I have heard teachers, some teachers are great where they like,
They have like this
Good morning,
secret
Mallory.
handshake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
High
you-
five, hug, or
yeah, I used to do that. It was like handshake, high five, or hug. Have
Those
you
are
seen
the
those?
cutest
They're so
videos.
cute. That would never be me. I would never be able to remember that. It's important to be authentic with yourself too when you're like coming up with these like routines and greetings, because like I know that that's not something that would be authentic to me.
Yeah.
But I can do a handshake, high five, or hug for
Definitely.
sure.
Those are easy. Yep.
Yep. But I have seen teachers where like the first thing they say to kids is like, you shouldn't be in the hallway yet, or hang it, like something negative.
Yes.
And it's so bad.
And that's how they start their day, those poor children.
Yeah.
Like my teacher didn't even say hi.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you doing in the hallway?
Have you seen
You have
that
5 minutes.
video? Remember that video that was going around about the kid? Oh God, it was so sad. It was like his bus driver yelled at him, like he got yelled at, and it was like,
I've
oh my
seen
God.
a video like that, but not that one.
Okay, we have to find it, and
yeah.
we'll post it on the website because it's heartbreaking.
That's
and then
so
you
sad.
then the plus side is they greet him happily, and his little face is just smiling, and it's like, why would you start your day off making a 8-year-old be sad?
I know. And even if they got to school early, you can just be like, oh, good morning, Jason. But you're a couple minutes early. If you can just, get in line. You can still be so nice.
I know.
To bark at them.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
make sure the first thing you say to a student is positive, because it will set the tone for the rest of the day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a lot of community building ideas for the classroom.
Okay. we'll just go back and forth.
Okay.
A couple here, a couple
Okay.
there. And I'm sure we have similar.
I'm sure we
things.
overlap.
Yes. So my first one was greet the child by
Mm-hmm.
their name in the morning and say good morning or something positive.
Yeah.
Because like you were just saying, that starts your day off, you want it on a positive note.
Yes.
Plus it honestly, I think our principal actually talked about this, like just a simple smile to another human being, like it just makes them positive in
Yeah.
your brain.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's really important.
In a similar way, laughing or laughter, sharing laughter as a classroom, that primes your brain for learning. So consider starting your day off with a joke. Make your class laugh. Do something silly.
Yes.
It'll help them learn.
I love having a fun teacher, so I'm on board with that. And then, so that first week of school, this is really important. Then throughout the year, obviously, you're going to continue things, but just doing those get to know you activities and fun games where
Yeah.
you can also share things about yourself. We kind of talked about this in the past.
Yes.
Like, obviously, you don't want to share too much, but you want to share some personal things so they can get to know you as well.
Absolutely.
So important. And then connection circles are so important where the students are in a circle. You are on the ground with them because you are part of this classroom community. And then keeping it really lighthearted at first so you can go in and have some deeper conversations,
Absolutely.
And so connection circles are like my top thing I do.
I love connection circles. And I see a lot of people miss the second part of connection circles, is where you go around the second time and you give time to make connections. And it's like, I have a connection with Mallory because I am also annoyed by my brother or whatever,
Yes.
And that really helps foster that community amongst your class. And it gives everyone an opportunity in your class to have their voice heard in the room.
Exactly. And if you have those shy students, the goal is to get them to say something, but I would always let them have like a pass for the first couple days. And then eventually it's like, okay, it's your turn. You can decide to go first. You can wait till the end. But our goal, because we're a community, our goal is everyone will say even just one word.
Yeah.
And then increase it to like a sentence, So, but I think that's important because you always have those few that are just so shy.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I've done with some of those kids is like go up to them privately before the circle starts and say, hey, this is going to be our question. You want to think about your answer?
Yeah.
Or if they're like learning English, you can say like, you can answer in Spanish or whatever your home language is. And B, if you want to practice saying it in English, like I could help translate it and like we can practice together before you say it in front of everyone too.
Yes. Yeah, rehearsal. You'll hear that a lot in education. Students need rehearsal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so those were a couple for me. We'll go to you now.
Okay, so in addition to connection circles, morning messages or morning meetings, different from connection circles, because this is really more about like, what am I going to do today, right? So like building that sense of community amongst your class. What I used to do is I would write a letter to my class on the whiteboard and be like, dear class, today in reading, we're going to da-da-da, today in
that's
whatever.
cute.
And then I'd be like, love Miss Barker. And then I'd be PS. And then I would do whatever the connection circle question was. So it served an academic purpose because they got letter formatting every day. This is how to
So
format a letter.
true.
And then it just provided that consistency so they knew what to expect for the day. And that helps settle like any kind of behaviors that might stem from not knowing what's going to
Yes.
happen during the day. So I liked doing morning messages.
I've seen that a different way too, where I love the letter idea. I've never thought about that. That's a great idea. I've seen a lot of teachers will just have the schedule up there, and if anything has changed, they will make sure they have that, because as we know, students like routines. And so anytime you throw one thing off, it kind of can mess up your whole day.
Yeah.
So knowing that at the beginning of the day, like, hey, instead of PE or whatever it is, we have to switch this today because there's an assembly. Assembly is going to be on this. But I think anytime you can go over your day plan,
Yeah.
kids need structure. They need to know what is happening
For sure.
next. So
I also liked the letter when we had a sub because I could like write it out for them even though I wasn't going to be there. So they kind of knew I was like still involved in their day.
that's sweet.
And then another thing I used to do was I would write notes to individual kids, which sounds daunting and like a lot, but I would do 5 or 6 a day. And it would be like, hi, Mariella, I noticed you worked really hard in reading yesterday. And then I would ask like a question. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah,
or like
just to get to
just
know
like a silly little question. And then sometimes they would answer back in person or sometimes they would write me back. Their faces when they saw that they had a note on their desk from their teacher, it was just like, we're talking kind of elementary school here, obviously, but maybe middle schoolers
Middle
would
school, like
this,
a quick little
actually.
sticky note, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they like to be called out too.
True. Their faces, and they were like, oh, you know, and then the other kids would be like, why didn't I get one? I'm like, well, I can't write everyone in one day. Like, you'll get a note too. Don't worry. So that was something else I did. And then the other thing I did kind of in groups like that was lunch bunch because
Kids love lunch brunch, if you didn't know that. Yeah.
yeah. And again, I don't know about middle schoolers because they tend to want to be with their peers, but
They do. I think you have to go about it a different way. Like they pick 3 friends or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I would do
Get
is
snacks for them.
Yeah.
Then they're like, I'm on it.
True. Rather
Some
than the food.
Takis. Sold.
So I would pick like 5 or 6 students and I would just do it on Fridays and I would draw names.
Oh, that's how you did yours.
Yeah, I
Mine
drew
had to earn theirs.
Okay, so I did not tie mine to any sort of
behavior.
earning because I wanted them to know that I cared about them as individuals no matter what.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I purposely didn't tie it to anything. I think if you use it as a reward for something,
Yeah.
that's fine. It just serves a different purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's a reward instead of a community building technique. But it can also be used as a community building technique, but it's just a different purpose, which is
Yeah.
fine. And then sometimes I would like purposefully, like I would like rig what I was drawing, right? I
That's
was
kind
like,
of how I did mine. Yeah.
I would be like, oh, I need to deepen this relationship, so I'm gonna like pick
Exactly.
this person. And then if they said, oh, I don't want to eat, like I want to eat in the cafeteria, I'd be like, okay, no worries, and I'd pick another name. And I think it was just really important to keep neutral with that because you didn't want them to think that your feelings were hurt because they made a
Yeah.
choice, right?
Yeah.
And then that's okay that they want to eat with their friends,
I
right?
don't think I ever had a kid turn it down.
I had a kid consistently. I had a really hard time with Pedro. I had a really hard time forming a relationship with this kid. And every week I would pick his name. I'd be like, nope. And then finally one day he was like, yes. I was like, yes.
We did it. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good
So
for
just,
him.
consistency.
It took a while. A lot of kids, it takes
Yeah.
time to build trust.
Yeah.
Especially you don't know what's happening at home. So it can take even
Exactly.
longer for some.
But you just got to keep at it.
I kept like a sheet and kept track of who I had come to lunch brunch, and it would change based on like our character trait for the week.
Oh, yeah.
However, if there was a student that I was really maybe having a difficult week, I would usually have them just come in to kind of see,
Yeah.
get some communication with them to figure out like what is happening. You know,
Yeah. And then honestly, I would discontinue it once the weather got cold because we usually sat outside and ate outside.
oh, that's fun.
And then by the time the weather turned cold, I had like already had lunch with all of them. Like I felt like our relationships were in a good place. And I was like, I'm going to take my Fridays back,
Yeah.
So I like wasn't giving up every single
Every
Friday for the
Friday.
rest of the school year. I did it for a quarter and a half. And then like, I felt like it was a really good community building technique.
I would usually just do like the last Friday of the month or something like that.
Yeah.
Depends.
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to find what works for you.
The other thing I thought about when you were talking about your cute little messages and letters to students is for my children's school, they will do the same type of thing, but they have little reward systems that they can earn. Their little cards. So one is like a letter from the teacher. One is like you can bring in a stuffy for a couple hours. But they have these cutest little cards and they hand them out throughout the day to students. And it's like when you see them come home, they're like, look what I got today. I get to do show and tell tomorrow. I get to bring my teddy, or I can have a pajama day. So
Cute.
their classroom, I loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Giving students opportunities to like bring their life into the classroom, like show and tell, which I never really did until we were in COVID. And then I was like,
Go find something in your house. 1, 2, 3, go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is a sock.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. They didn't have, yeah. I was like, but they probably maybe have never did that in the past. So
Yeah,
it's
no,
just like-
no one really brought me a sock.
I had some pretty plain things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like a soccer ball. Like, oh, yeah. Not like a special one, just one they found.
Yeah,
So.
but it meant something to
Yeah,
them. So, yeah. Okay, what else you got?
All right. I have, so just sharing stories about yourself. I know we both talked a lot about this
Yeah.
because you have to be open, you have to be fun. But that'll lead me to my story of the day.
Okay.
So this isn't necessarily what a student said, but it's kind of funny. At the beginning of the school year, the private school, Catholic school, there were 2 or 3 third graders who took dance class, like loved dance, one of them all the time. Like that was her life, right? And so I was like, oh, I used to dance too. And so I was telling her about, I started when I was 3. Like I love dancing. So the class gets all involved and they're just like, we would really like to see like your dance moves. And I'm like, okay. And so the one little girl's like, do you have like an old dance you could perform for us? I'm like, well, I probably do. I don't think I could remember, all of it. And so I was like, I'll make a deal with you. I was like, if we have a strong classroom community, right? We follow our expectations, we stay positive, and we're a kind friend, then the last week of school, I will perform a dance for you. And so they were all like just so intrigued, and like the whole class too, not just the 3 dancers, but everybody. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I get myself into now? And so as we went through the year, I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna have to actually perform a dance because that was my favorite class. Maybe it was because of that dance. I don't know. And so anyways, at the last week of school, I couldn't remember any of my old dances. So I made a new one to the best day of my life.
Cute.
And so I performed a little dance. I made like a little circle. I got in the middle and performed a dance. And then at the end, the one student is like, those moves look like they came from the 80s for sure. I was like, I don't think so. And the whole class was just like cheering. They loved it. It was hilarious. I wish I would have videotaped it.
Yeah, do you still remember the dance? Can you
No,
show us
couldn't
it?
even tell you. Yeah, but I was like, I didn't think it was like from the 80s, but it's fine.
Mallory tried to teach me a TikTok dance one time.
Couple times.
Couple times.
Who are we
Spoiler, I'm
kidding?
not good at it.
We'll
Organized
post
dance.
those maybe.
No, we will not.
Very entertaining.
Okay.
That's how we'll get our views.
Yeah, that's how we build our community. Everyone laughs at me.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, just have fun with your class.
Yeah.
And then I have one more, or I have a couple more, but just using metacognition. So really using that to tell students about, like, if you're having a bad day, it's okay to be like, I'm going to have a growth mindset today. Let me tell you about how my day started. This
Yeah.
is how I overcame it. But I think kids nowadays, really, they need to hear that, yes, we have challenges. How do we deal with those? How do
sure.
we persevere and, have that growth mindset?
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. So I just have a few more. One of mine was laughing at yourself, which is hilarious because you just talked about that. But utilizing that morning, like if you have any unstructured morning time, like we used to have breakfast in the classroom, or like if you have advisory time or anything like that, where like students are just getting ready for the day, you should be circulating and talking to kids. Assign another kid a job of taking attendance or doing those like morning routines or whatever, but talk to kids, ask about their soccer game, show them a picture of your dog. You should be talking to kids, not, I get some days you have to like finalize some things, but you really need to be circulating because that's how you build community.
Yes,
They need
it's
to see
always
that
the
they care.
worst when you walk in a classroom and the teacher's like at their desk with their head down, just taking attendance. And it's like perfect opportunity to take that morning time to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to what you're saying, how do you start your day? It's like you're starting your day closed off from your students when you can be like, oh my gosh, what'd you do last night? Tell me about your weekend.
Yeah. Sometimes I just be like, what'd you have for dinner?
Yeah.
Tell me. Any dinner ideas?
Yeah, that's true.
They'd be like, I don't remember. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I had pizza if I was Mallory.
We had pizza last night.
Did you really?
No. But tonight we are, and that's true.
I love it.
Okay, so I have another one.
Okay.
A place. So sometimes schools will have you have like a quiet corner or a place to regulate.
Yes.
I do think that's important. And I think
Agree.
for all ages, even in middle school, to have just a place like where they can just like go
Chill.
kind of off to themselves.
Yeah.
Take 5. So I do think that is really important, and having something not necessarily for them to do, but almost. So if it's just coloring, letting your feelings out, if it's like a reflection sheet, again, you know your class, but I would have like a little reflection, like what's wrong, just a quick, unhappy, happy face, sad face, and then like a medium face. So just how are you feeling and why, if they want to share, or just coloring, but something for them to do. Fidgets.
Yeah, I agree. One of the schools I was at had a really great mindfulness program, and we had a mindfulness class that we would actually go to as a class, and we participated as a teacher. And I loved it. It was amazing. She set up these regulation zones, and she had 4 drawers for each of the zones of regulation. So like if you're in the blue zone, you pick from the blue drawer to regulate yourself. Yeah. Blue is like feeling kind of down or sad, right? Red is you're feeling mad or angry. Yellow is like maybe frustrated or just like extra
anxious
energy. Yeah. And then green was happy kind of level, not really level, but like happy, your energy, but you're energetic, but you're feeling good, right? So you might want like a calming, like if you're in the green zone, you might want some, because you want to be more in the middle. And so you want to do some sort of activity that will calm you down, or in just like different ways. So anyway,
that's a good idea.
It was really cool.
I love that.
Yeah. So shout out to her.
I have classroom jobs. I'm sure you have. I know you talked about that too, but I've always used classroom jobs for everything. And you got to train them that first few weeks, but after that, it saves so much time for you.
Yeah.
To build your community and talk to students.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of people don't connect classroom jobs with building community because it's more like a routine and a structure, but routines and structures build community.
Exactly. And it's building their independence too.
And agency within the classroom.
Yes.
If they're the computer managers or whatever your title is for that job, they take ownership of making sure that everyone's computer is plugged in, and then they start caring about the space.
They do. And everybody wants the jobs too. Like they really want them. So it's something that students are engaged with. And what was else I going to say about the jobs? I've seen lots of different ways. Maybe we can tell our audience about different ways to manage that. So I've always had a chart with the jobs, and then I would have like a popsicle sticker or something with their names on them and rotate them around.
That's what I did too.
Yeah. Some of the jobs are like take attendance, teacher of the day. I would have like a homework collector. So if someone was absent, they could collect all the work that they did, and then they would help that student the next day explain what they missed.
Yeah.
There's so many jobs you can do. Like the leader, the line leader,
Yeah, we'll do a blog post on classroom jobs.
Okay.
Because I think that there's
different ways to manage them, because I've seen them different ways.
Yeah. My last thing that I've written down to share is I did something called compliment clouds that I just totally made up, because my class was struggling with saying kind things to each other. So I just cut out a bunch of clouds from paper, and then they picked one. Like if they finished work, they'd be like, "Can I write a compliment cloud?" And they would just write a compliment to a student. And then at the end of the day, I would read out the compliment clouds. I would have to like make sure that everyone eventually got a compliment cloud. So I would like write one, and then I would like post them on the like upper part of the wall. So we were like surrounded by everyone's compliments.
Oh, that's sweet.
That was cute.
That is very sweet. And if there's a student that doesn't have one, you can always go to another one and be like, "Hey, did you notice what they just did? That'd be nice to put on there."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you're right. Everyone wants to be included.
Yeah.
Nice. The last one I had was, let's see here. I just have seen it. Oh, just incorporating SEL. One, some schools give like a time, so maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Some schools, they don't have that anymore, which, that hurts my heart, because I'm like, everybody needs that time. So social emotional learning is SEL. And so just taking time to fit it in when you can. I found transitions are really a great opportunity to do some of that.
Yeah.
But those connection circles, if you can kind of incorporate those, even with like literacy, just starting it off real quick before you get into the academic part.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to, teach students about.
And that reminds me, because I was going to talk about differentiating SEL or like scaffolding certain things, because certain kids are going to need different things. I had a student, who I still miss desperately. He's just like the cutest little guy. But he wouldn't always come into my classroom early, like before the bell rang, and he just needed to be in there alone. I was in there, but he would just like either circle around or he'd get his blocks and start playing, and then I would chat with him. But he needed that soft start. And it was funny because he just started doing it himself. But I let him, because he needed it. Like he
Yes.
needed that slow entrance. And so like some students are going to need more reminders and some students are going to need more breaks. They should still be held accountable for following all the rules, but they're going to need extra scaffolds. So make sure to differentiate that support. And I know sometimes that can cause.
Why does he get that? Or
Yeah.
Why does she get? Yeah.
Yeah. So what I usually do for that is I have another teacher, like, or I send that kid on an errand or something. And then I like have a class meeting and I'm like, hey, some kids need something else. You know, this is sort of why kids see the behaviors. Kids know sometimes kids need different things. And
Yeah.
you just have kind of a real I mean, you don't, tell them everything that's going on in that kid's life.
No.
But,
Yeah.
but you have an honest conversation and kids get it. And they're like, okay.
There's also a lot of nice inclusive books. Maybe we can find a couple to post, but I've always read those. And it's just like some kids need glasses, some kids wear leg braces, some
Yeah.
kids need, and so getting at that, everyone has their different needs and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we just threw out a bunch of strategies. We go in depth with a lot of the strategies in our blog. We kind of have it broken up into student level, like individual relationship building methods, and then like building a community within your classroom.
Yes.
So be sure to check it out. And then as always, please send us your stories about how you are building community, any questions that you have. We're happy to answer anything. You can fill out the contact form on our website. And then make sure you're following us on social media. We have Chalk It Out _podcast on Instagram.
Chalk It Out on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook.
Yep, we're everywhere. Okay.
All right. Thank you.